Now, Russia and Ukraine have agreed to a full and comprehensive implementation of a ceasefire in the Donbass region of Ukraine before the end of 2019 after peace talks in Paris. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met in person for the first time on December 9th in a bid to resolve a long-running conflict in eastern Ukraine between pro-Russian separatists and Ukrainian forces. Both leaders cautiously welcomed their meeting, and President Putin said the process was going in the right direction, but differences remain, including over the control of the Ukrainian-Russian border.
Ukraine and Russia have managed to inch forward on a long dormant peace process, taking cautious new steps toward ending the conflict in Ukraine's eastern Donbass region. The leaders of France, Germany, Ukraine and Russia met in Paris for 5.5 hours of talks on December the 9th, producing at the day's end a joint communique that said all parties will commit to a full and comprehensive implementation of a ceasefire in Ukraine by the end of the year. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel took part in the negotiations, but all eyes were on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin, who represent opposing sides in a 5-year war that has claimed the lives of around 13,000 people. Russia has never openly acknowledged that it is a belligerent in the conflict, although Ukraine and its Western backers say Moscow has sent military hardware, advisors, and even conventional military forces to support the separatists. The meeting was the first between the Ukrainian and Russian presidents since Zelensky took office earlier this year in a landslide election victory. The two leaders have already taken steps toward compromise. They recently hammered out a deal for a prisoner swap that paved the way for Monday's meeting. In Paris, the pair committed to an important new step, pledging to work toward local elections in the separatist regions of eastern Ukraine, but they avoided the thorny issue of when exactly that might happen.
I would like to outline a number of principles which I will never violate as the president of Ukraine and with which Ukrainian people will never agree. First, there is no chance of federalization. Ukraine is a unitary state. There can be no compromises on settlement of the situation in eastern Ukraine under the conditions of territorial concessions by Ukraine with its international recognized borders. We know that for every Ukrainian, both Donbass and Crimea is Ukraine.
Agreement was reached to hold another round of talks in the so-called Normandy format, brokered by France and Germany within 4 months. There has been scant sign of a peaceful solution to the crisis, despite its 2015 ceasefire deal in Minsk, the capital of Belarus. Monday's summit is the first time the four leaders have met under the Normandy format since 2016. A one-on-one session between Putin and Zelensky in Paris did not resolve the biggest issue of who will control Ukraine's eastern border when elections happen in separatist regions. But it did at least show the two leaders could engage in dialogue.
I'm now being joined by Ambassador Joe Keshi, who is the former permanent secretary at the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to discuss the implications of this meeting. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us on Diplomatic Channel. Now, President Putin of Russia met with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine for the first time in this summit in Paris to try to end 5 years of war. From what came out of these talks, is this progress? How optimistic are you that these talks will bring about peace in the region?
I think we have to be optimistic about peace in that part of the world, given the fact that this is not the first time the leaders will meet. This is actually the second time, which demonstrates that some realities are dawning on all the leaders. The leaders of Europe, for example, France and Germany, I think they realize that they need to be more involved to find a solution to the crisis that has created complications in their relationship with Russia. So for them, the sooner this crisis can be resolved, they probably be able to establish a good relationship with the Russian Federation. On the other hand, Ukraine, I think, is also realizing that with Americans' leadership emerged in the impeachment process, America probably won't have enough a good mindset to focus on the situation in Ukraine. Short of saying that they probably have lost confidence too in what has happened in their relationship with America. So everybody today in that part of the world has one reason or the other to want peace in the region.
Well, the leaders also agreed to meet in 4 months to discuss the issues of elections and special status in eastern Ukraine. This has always been a pretty controversial issue. Are Russia's demand realistic in this process?
No, I don't think it's a question whether the Russians' demand are realistic. In any meeting, everybody has a demand. What they need to do is to find a common ground. I'm not too sure the pressure is on the Russians, but I think the pressure is more on the young and relatively new president in Ukraine. You know, there's a lot of controversies, but also consensus in Ukraine, or rather apprehension in Ukraine that their leader is young and inexperienced, as against a man who has spent 20 years as the leader of Russia.
You know, President Zelensky is a former comedian who made bringing peace to eastern Ukraine his #1 election promise. But many say he doesn't have enough political experience. Before this meeting, there were protests over fears of him making too much concessions to Russia. With all this in mind and how the meeting fared, do you think he'll be able to successfully bring peace without giving too much away to Russia?
I'm not too sure that he will give away a lot during these negotiations. And we need to also bear in mind that he's not the only one going into these negotiations, that he has a set of advisors who certainly will put before him all the options, you know, that would be to the best interests of Ukraine. What we should pray for is that they should be able to reach a compromise that would allow peace in the border region. Already 14,000 people have been killed as a result of these separatist activities, which is backed by Russia. So I guess we have every reason to remain, optimistic.
Ambassador, France is embroiled in its own political crisis at home. Germany's Angela Merkel is on her way out soon. What interest do both these leaders have in this peace process? And were they the right parties to broker these talks?
Absolutely. France and Germany arguably are the leaders of Western Europe, and they are in a better position to steer the peace train to its logical conclusion. Their interest is very simple. They have realized that Ukraine remains a stumbling block to building a good relationship with Russia. And until this issue is resolved, it will be very difficult for the European Union to make any headway in its relationship with Russia. The second thing is that we should also see this peace negotiation in a way. It's a subtle way of saying that they do not think that American leadership in the Western Hemisphere is strong anymore. And so they have to take the bull by the horn in Western Europe and begin to take care of their own interests without depending on the Americans to a larger extent. So in a way, it doesn't make a difference whether France is embroiled in crisis of its own, or that the German chancellor is leaving next year or a few years from now. The truth of the matter is that in international relations and crises of this nature, national policies are almost invariably constant.
Ambassador Keshi, thank you so much for your time. And this is where we end the program today. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can catch up on all our episodes on youtube.com/channelsweb. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Bye for now.